Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the large window. The Harmony's Edge moved slowly through space, its engines making a soft humming sound. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had been traveling for 3 months now, studying the pretty colors of gas clouds far from Earth. "Captain," called Jinwoo Park from his seat at the communication station. "I'm getting a message from the New Sol colony. They sound worried." Daeho walked over to Jinwoo's station. The young man had been with the crew for 2 years. He was good at his job and never caused trouble. "Put it on the main screen," Daeho said. The screen flickered and showed a woman's face. She looked scared. "This is Governor Sojin Lee of New Sol Colony. We need help. There are big ships coming toward our planet. They don't answer our calls." Daeho felt his stomach tighten. New Sol was a peaceful farming world. The people there grew food and raised animals. They had never hurt anyone. "How many ships?" he asked. 20. No, 30. "They're huge, Captain Kim. Much bigger than anything we've ever seen." Boram Lee looked up from her engineering station. She was a small woman with quick hands and a smart mind. "Captain, I'm reading energy patterns on long-range sensors. Someone is charging weapons." Daeho had been a ship captain for 15 years. He had seen many things in space, but he had never seen a war. Humans didn't fight wars anymore. They explored space, studied new worlds, and traded with other species. The galaxy was mostly peaceful, and humans liked it that way. "Jinwoo, try to contact those ships," Daeho ordered. "Tell them we want to talk." Jinwoo's fingers moved quickly over his controls. After a moment, he shook his head. "They're not answering, Captain." Dr. Haewon Choi came onto the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. Her gray hair was tied back, and she carried a data pad in her hands. "Captain, I've been studying the ships. They belong to the Vorthak Empire. Everyone on the bridge knew about the Vorthaks. They were big lizard-like creatures who ruled over many star systems. They had a huge army and demanded that other species pay them money for protection. Most aliens were afraid of them." "What do they want with New Sol?" Daeho asked. Haewon looked at her datapad. "The Vorthaks have been sending messages to human colonies for the past year. They want us to pay taxes and follow their laws. Most colonies have ignored them. Because we're free people," Boram said angrily. "We don't bow to anyone." Daeho nodded. Humans had learned long ago that freedom was worth fighting for, but they had also learned that fighting was terrible and should be avoided if possible. For 300 years, humans had lived peacefully among the stars. The screen flickered again. Governor Sojin's face was gone, replaced by something that made everyone on the bridge step back. It was a Vorthak, but unlike any they had seen before. This one was huge, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. Scars covered its face, and its teeth were filed to sharp points. "I am War Leader Grixval of the 5th Assault Fleet," the creature said. Its voice was deep and full of hate. "You humans on the dirt ball below will surrender now. You will pay 10 years of back taxes. You will accept Vorthak rule. You have 1 hour." Daeho stepped forward. "This is Captain Kim of the Earthship Harmony's Edge. We want to talk about this. Surely we can reach an agreement that works for everyone." The Vorthak's yellow eyes seemed to look right through the screen at him. "There is no agreement, human. There is only surrender or death. You weak creatures have been an embarrassment to the galaxy for too long. Today you learn your place. The screen went black. Jinwoo was already trying to contact New Sol. "Governor Lee, are you there? Governor Lee, please respond." Static filled the speakers for a long moment. Then Sojin's voice came through, but she was crying. "They're firing on the cities. Oh God, they're destroying everything. The capital is gone. Busan City is gone. They're killing everyone." Daeho felt something cold spread through his chest. He had never felt this feeling before. It was like ice water in his veins, but it was also like fire in his mind. How many people lived in those cities? 2 million in the capital. Sojin sobbed. 1.5 million in Busan. They didn't even give us time to surrender. They just started shooting. Boram's hands were shaking at her station. Haewon had tears running down her face. Jinwoo was staring at his controls like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Governor, get your people to the emergency shelters," Daeho said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're sending a message to Earth right now." After the communication ended, the bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Daeho looked at his crew. These were good people. They were scientists and explorers. They had never hurt anyone in their lives. "Captain," Boram said softly, "what do we do?" Daeho thought about the question. What could they do? The Harmony's Edge was a research ship. It had no weapons except small guns for clearing space debris. The Vorthax had 30 warships. We do what humans have always done when faced with bullies, he said. We record everything. We make sure the galaxy knows what really happened here, and we make sure this information gets back to Earth. Jinwoo was already working. "Sending full data burst to Earth Command now, Captain. Everything we've seen and heard." "Good," Daeho said. "Now we wait and watch." Over the next 6 hours, they watched the Vorthax ships destroy 3 more cities on New Sol. Each time the aliens sent a message first, demanding surrender. Each time the colonists tried to negotiate. Each time the Vorthax opened fire anyway. By the end of the day, 8 million humans were dead. The surviving colonists were herded into camps and told they were now slaves of the Vorthax Empire. That night, Daeho sat alone in his captain's quarters looking at pictures of Earth. He had grown up in a small town where his grandmother told him stories about the old days, when humans fought each other in terrible wars. She had always ended those stories the same way. "We learned to be better, Daeho. We learned that peace is precious." Now looking at the reports from New Sol, Daeho wondered if being peaceful had made humans weak. Maybe the Vorthax were right. Maybe humans were just soft creatures who couldn't defend themselves. Then he remembered something else his grandmother had said. She had been very old, and her voice had been just a whisper, but he had never forgotten her words. "We didn't stop being dangerous, child. We just learned to keep the monster sleeping. But if someone wakes it up..." She had smiled then, but it wasn't a nice smile. Well, they shouldn't have done that. 3 days later, Jinwoo received a message from Earth. It was short. Message received. Response coming. Daeho didn't know what that meant, but something in those simple words made the ice in his chest start to feel more like fire. President Mi-young-seo sat in the emergency meeting room deep under the Earth's surface. The walls were thick metal, and the room had no windows. Around the long table sat the most important people in human space. Their faces were hard and angry. 8 million dead, said General Taimin Jang, reading from his report. 3 cities completely destroyed. The rest of the colony is now under Vorthax control. Mi-young had been president for 5 years. She was a peaceful woman who believed in talking through problems. She had never ordered soldiers to fight anyone. But as she listened to the reports from New Sol, something old and dark was waking up inside her. "What do we know about Vorthax military strength?" she asked. General Jang opened a thick file. He was an old soldier, but he had never fought in a real war. None of them had. They have about 50,000 ships spread across their empire. Their technology is good, but not better than ours. They rely on fear and numbers to win fights. Dr. Eugene Song leaned forward. She ran the secret research projects that most people didn't know about. "Madam President, there are things you need to know. Things we've been working on during our peaceful years." Mi-young looked at the thin woman with sharp eyes. "What kind of things?" "Insurance," Eugene said simply. "When we left Earth to explore the stars, some smart people asked a question. What if we meet something dangerous out there? What if being peaceful isn't enough?" She touched a button, and the lights dimmed. Pictures appeared on the wall screen. "These are mining ships, or that's what everyone thinks. Really, they're weapons platforms. We have 600 of them scattered across human space." The pictures showed large, ugly ships that looked like they were built to dig rocks out of asteroids. Mi-young had seen dozens of ships like this, but she had never looked closely at them. "Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small fleet," Eugene continued. We also have AI systems that can think faster than any alien computer we've ever seen. And we have other things. Darker things. What do you mean? Mi-young asked, though part of her was afraid to know. General Zhang opened another file. This one was marked with red letters that said, Classified, Species Survival Only. Madam President, we've been studying our own history. All of it, including the parts we don't like to remember. Images flashed on the screen. Ancient Earth. Humans fighting with swords and guns and bombs. Cities burning. Armies marching across dead fields. For 50,000 years, humans lived. On a world that tried to kill them every day, Zhang said. Ice ages, volcanoes, diseases, predators with claws and teeth. We survived because we learned to be the most dangerous thing on the planet. Mi-young felt cold. We left all that behind. We became civilized. No, said a new voice. Admiral Kyung-Soo Han walked into the room. He was the head of Earth's small defense fleet. We became controlled, there's a difference. He sat down heavily. I've been reading old military files. Do you know why humans stopped fighting wars 300 years ago? It wasn't because we became peaceful. It was because we got too good at killing each other. The room was quiet. Mi-young could hear her own heart beating. The last war on Earth lasted 6 hours, Han continued. 6 hours and half the planet was dead. We looked at what we had done, and we were so scared of ourselves that we agreed to never fight again. We built these ships to explore and trade, not to fight, but we never forgot how to fight. Dr. Yu Jin stood up. I've been running computer models. The Vorthax think they're dealing with sheep. Peaceful, harmless sheep. But sheep don't survive on death worlds for 50,000 years. She touched another button. The screen showed a map of Vorthax space. It was huge, covering hundreds of star systems. They rule through fear. They're used to fighting enemies who surrender when things get difficult. They've never fought anyone who doesn't give up. And they've never fought humans when humans are angry, General Zhang added quietly. The door opened and more people came in. Scientists, military advisors, intelligence officers. People who had been called from across the solar system for this meeting. Their faces all showed the same thing. Rage barely held in check. Commander Nari Kim was the last to arrive. She was young for her rank, but she was the smartest strategic mind in human space. Madam President, I've been studying the attack on New Sol. The Vorthax made a mistake. What kind of mistake? Mi-young asked. They think they sent us a message about their power, Nari said. But they really sent us a message about their weakness. They could have just demanded tribute. Instead, they murdered civilians to make a point. That tells us they're not confident in their strength. She walked to the screen and pointed at the Vorthax territory. Look at this empire. It's huge, but it's spread thin. They have 50,000 ships, but they're scattered across thousands of worlds. They can't bring their full power to bear on any single target without leaving other areas undefended. Are you suggesting we fight them? Mi-young asked. I'm suggesting we teach them why humans don't fight wars anymore, Nari replied. Not because we can't, but because we're too good at it. The room fell silent again. Mi-young looked around the table at these people. Scientists who had spent their lives studying the stars, soldiers who had never seen battle, politicians who had solved problems with words, not weapons. They killed 8 million people, she said slowly. Children, families, people who never hurt anyone. Yes, General Zhang said. And they think we'll surrender because we're peaceful? Yes. Mi-young stood up. Something was changing inside her. Something that scared her but also made her feel strangely calm. Dr. Song, how long to activate your hidden weapons? 72 hours, Yujin replied. General Zhang, how long to mobilize our defenses? 1 week for full readiness. Commander Kim, how long to plan a response that these lizards will never forget? Nari smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. I already have 3 plans ready, Madam President. All of them start with making sure the galaxy understands what happens when someone murders human children. That evening, Mi-young sat in her private office looking at pictures from New Sol. The Vorthax had sent these pictures to other human colonies as a warning. Children's toys scattered in burned streets, playgrounds turned to ash, schools that would never ring with laughter again. Secretary Young-Ho Park brought her tea. He was a quiet man who had worked for her since she became president. "Madam President, the Vorthak ambassador is demanding to speak with you." "What does he want?" "He says you have 24 hours to surrender all human colonies to Vorthak. Rule. If you refuse, they will destroy another world." Mi Young sipped her tea. It tasted bitter. "Young-Ho, send a message to every human colony, every human ship, every human settlement in space." "What should it say?" She looked at the pictures. Again, a little girl's doll, half melted by plasma fire. Tell them to remember who they are. Tell them to remember where they came from. And tell them that the galaxy is about to learn why humans don't fight wars. Young-Ho started to leave, then turned back. "Madam President, what about the Vorthak?" "Ambassador?" Mi Young set down her teacup. Her hands were steady now and her voice was calm. "Tell him we received his message. Tell him we decline his offer. And tell him that if he destroys one more human world, we will show his people what it means to wake up something that should have been left sleeping." After Young-Ho left, Mi Young opened her desk drawer and pulled out an old book. It was a history of human warfare, written centuries ago. She had never read it before because she never wanted to know about humanity's violent past. Now she opened it to the first page and began to read about what her species was truly capable of when pushed too far. Outside her window she could see the lights of Earth's cities, peaceful lights in a peaceful world. But in the darkness between those lights she knew that old instincts were stirring. The monster was waking up, and it was very, very hungry. Commander Shung-Ho An floated in his small ship, watching the Vorthak supply convoy through his sensors. His ship was called the Shadow Walker, and it was no bigger than a house. It looked like a broken piece of metal floating in space, which was exactly what he wanted. 3 months had passed since the Vorthaks destroyed the cities on New Sol. 3 months since humanity declared war. But this wasn't the kind of war the galaxy expected. "Target confirmed," whispered his pilot, Min-Soo Lee, from the front seat. 12 cargo ships, 4 escort fighters. Shung-Ho smiled in the darkness. The Vorthak still didn't understand what. They were fighting. They expected big fleets and massive battles. Instead, they got ghosts. "Remember the plan," he said quietly into his radio. "We hit the fuel ships first. Leave the escorts alive so they can report what happened." Around him, in the darkness, 30 other small human ships waited. They were all volunteers who had left their families to join this fight. Most of them had been miners or traders before the war. Now they were something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans who had stopped pretending to be peaceful. "All units, go," Shung-Ho whispered. The human ships moved like hunting wolves. They came from different directions using asteroids and gas clouds to hide. The Vorthak escorts never saw them coming. Shung-Ho's ship fired 6 small missiles at the largest fuel tanker. The explosions lit up space like tiny suns. Around him, the other human ships were doing the same thing. In 30 seconds, all 12 cargo ships were burning. The 4 Vorthak escort ships tried to fight back, but the human ships were already gone, disappearing into the darkness like they had never been there at all. "Mission complete," Min-Soo said, checking his instruments. "All targets destroyed, no human losses." Shung-Ho opened a communication channel to the surviving Vorthak escorts. He knew they could hear him. "This is the human fleet. You can go home. Now tell your leaders that we are everywhere. Tell them that every supply ship, every fuel tanker, every cargo hauler in your empire is now a target. We will not fight your big ships. We will starve them instead." He closed the channel and turned to Min-Soo. "Take us home. We have more work to do." Back on Earth, strategic analyst Nari Kim sat in a room full of screens and computers. Each screen showed a different part of Vorthak space. Red dots marked where human raiders had struck in the past week. "Status report," said General Zhang as he walked into the room. Nari pointed at the screens. 57 successful raids this week. We've destroyed over 300 cargo ships, 40 fuel tankers, and 15 communication stations. The Vorthax are starting to have supply problems. Any losses on our side? 3 ships, but all the crews got away in escape pods. The Vorthax still don't know how to fight this kind of war. General Zhang nodded. The plan was working better than anyone had hoped. Instead of meeting the Vorthak fleets head-on, the humans were doing something their enemies had never experienced. They were fighting smart. "What about psychological warfare?" he asked. Nari smiled. This was her favorite part of the plan. "Doctor, Hyunji Moon's team is having amazing success. Watch this." A new screen lit up showing a Vorthak news broadcast. The lizard-like reporter was trying to sound confident, but its voice was shaky. "The Empire's glorious fleet continues to hunt the human terrorists. Victory is certain." "Now watch what we broadcast on the same channel 10 minutes later," Nari said. The screen changed to show a human woman sitting calmly at a desk. This was Dr. Moon, and she spoke perfect Vorthak language. "Citizens of the Empire, my name is Hyunji Moon. I want to talk to you about your sons." The Vorthak language was hard for humans to speak, but Dr. Moon had studied it for years. Her voice was gentle and sad. "Right now, your children are dying in space, far from home. They are dying because your leaders decided to murder human families. They are dying because your emperor thinks his pride is more important than their lives." She held up pictures of destroyed Vorthak ships. "This is the Warfang, destroyed yesterday near the Colton system. All hands lost. This is the Blood Strike, destroyed 3 days ago. The crew tried to surrender, but their ship exploded before we could save them." Nari paused the recording. "We're broadcasting this to every Vorthak world every day. Their own government can't stop it because we've learned to hack their communication systems." "What's the effect?" General Zhang asked. "Riots on 6 Vorthak worlds so far. Anti-war protests on 20 more. Their military is having to use ships to control their own people instead of fighting us. And best of all, some of their ship captains are refusing to leave port." On another screen, spy reports scrolled past. Vorthak military leaders arguing with each other. Supply shortages causing problems on military bases. Families demanding to know why their sons had to die fighting humans. "The beauty of it," Nari continued, "is that everything Dr. Moon says is true. We are killing their people, but only the ones who come to fight us. We offer surrender to every Vorthak crew we meet. Most of them are too proud to take it, so they die instead." General Zhang was quiet for a moment. "This is working, but it's not enough. The Vorthak still have most of their fleet intact. If they get smart and coordinate their response." "They won't," Nari said confidently, "because they still think like bullies. Watch." Another screen showed a recording from yesterday. Admiral Colrex, the Vorthak fleet commander, was giving a speech to his officers. "These human insects are embarrassing the Empire. I want them crushed. Burn every human world you can find." "He's making the same mistake they made at New Seoul," Nari explained. "He thinks killing civilians will scare us. Instead, every atrocity they commit just makes more humans angry. And angry humans are very dangerous humans." She was right. Reports from across human space showed the same thing. Young people who had never thought about military service were volunteering to join the Raiders. Scientists were working around the clock to build new weapons. Even children were contributing, collecting metal and electronics for the war effort. Meanwhile, in deep space, engineer Dong-Wook Lee was putting the finishing touches on his newest creation. It looked like a normal asteroid, complete with ice and rock on the outside. But inside it was full of sensors, computers, and weapons. "Ghost Base Alpha is ready," he reported to his team. "It can stay hidden for 2 years, monitoring everything that passes through this sector." His assistant, Ji-Hai Park, checked the readouts. "Life support is stable. The crew of 20 can live here comfortably. Weapon systems are fully operational." Dong-Wook nodded. This was the next phase of the human war plan. Instead of just raiding supply ships, they were setting up permanent bases in Vorthak territory. Invisible bases that could strike at any target and then disappear again. "Remember," he told the crew that would stay behind, "you're not here to be heroes. You're here to be ghosts. Hit them when they don't expect it, then vanish. Make them afraid of every shadow, every asteroid, every piece of space debris. The crew commander, Captain Inho Cho, saluted. Understood, sir. The Vorthax want to play hide-and-seek with humans. Time to show them what happens when humans are it. Back. On the Vorthak homeworld, Emperor Grextar raged in his throne room. 6 months of war with the humans and his mighty empire was starting to look weak. Cargo ships afraid to leave port, planets demanding more protection, military officers questioning his orders. How can these pathetic mammals be causing so much trouble? He roared at his advisors. War leader Grixvol, who had led the attack on New Sol, stood before the throne. Great Emperor, the humans are not fighting honorably. They attack civilians and run away from real battles. Then find them and crush them. We cannot find them, Great Emperor. They appear from nowhere, strike like lightning, and vanish like smoke. Our sensors cannot track their ships. Our communications are compromised. They seem to know our every move before we make it. The Emperor's yellow eyes blazed with fury. Then we will teach them fear. Order the fleet to destroy every human world they can find. Kill them all. Grixvol hesitated. Great Emperor, every time we attack human civilians, more of them join their raider fleets. Perhaps we should consider negotiation. The Emperor's claws came out. In one swift motion, he tore Grixvol's throat open. The war leader collapsed, bleeding on the throne room floor. Anyone else want to suggest surrender? The Emperor asked the other advisors. No one spoke. But in the shadows of the throne room, hidden cameras recorded everything. Within an hour, the footage was being broadcast on every human ship in the galaxy. Dr. Yoonji Moon sat at her desk again, speaking in her calm voice to the Vorthak people. Citizens of the Empire, this is your leader. This is the creature who is sending your children to die. He murders his own advisors for suggesting peace. He cares nothing for your lives, only for his pride. She held up the footage of the Emperor killing Grixvol. We humans did not start this war. We tried to negotiate. We offered compromise. But your Emperor chose death instead. Now ask yourselves, is his pride worth your children's lives? The My broadcast ended with a simple message. We are willing to talk, he is only willing to kill. Choose wisely. Across the Vorthak Empire, people began to listen. Ambassador Hyunwoo Baek stood in the Great Hall of the Keltharian Trade Federation, looking up at the tall, blue-skinned aliens who ruled this part of space. 18 months had passed since the war began, and the galaxy was starting to pay attention. Honored speakers, he said in their musical language. Humanity requests your support in our conflict with the Vorthak Empire. The lead Keltharian, Speaker Velthara, rustled her silver feathers nervously. Ambassador Beck, your species has impressed us with your military abilities, but the Vorthaks are very powerful. We cannot risk our trading routes. Hyunwoo smiled. He had expected this answer. Honored speaker, what if I told you we're not asking for your help? What if we're offering to help you? The Keltharians whispered among themselves in their sing-song voices. They had been paying tribute to the Vorthaks for 50 years, giving up 20% of their trade profits to avoid being conquered. What do you mean? Velthara asked. Hyunwoo touched a button on his wrist device. The air above his hand shimmered and a hologram appeared. It showed Vorthak space, but now it was covered in red warning symbols. In 18 months, we have reduced Vorthak military effectiveness by 60%. Their supply lines are broken. Their communications are compromised. Their own people are beginning to rebel against them. He changed the image to show economic data. Their ability to collect tribute from subject worlds has dropped by 40%. They simply don't have enough ships left to enforce their demands. The Keltharians looked at each other in surprise. They had been paying tribute just last month, but they hadn't realized how much the Vorthak Empire was weakening. We offer you a choice, Hyunwoo continued. Keep paying tribute to a dying empire, or let us teach you how to defend yourselves. We will share our military technology freely. All we ask is that you stop supporting the Vorthaks. Speaker Velthara was quiet for a long moment. You would give us weapons? For free? We would give you the tools to be free, Hyunwoo corrected. What you do with them is up to you. 3 days later, the first Keltharian ships were fitted with human stealth technology. Within a week, they had stopped paying tribute to the Vorthax. Within a month, 6 other species had joined them. The war was spreading, but not the way anyone expected. Instead of one big conflict, it was becoming dozens of smaller rebellions, all supported by human technology and tactics. On the planet Zerion, Prime, the insect-like ethereal collective, was learning how to make human weapons. Their 6-armed workers were perfect for building the complex electronics that made human ships invisible to enemy sensors. Your people are natural engineers, said human advisor So-Young Kim, as she watched the ethereals work. These stealth generators are actually better than the ones we make on Earth. Queen Zilthes clicked her mandibles in what humans had learned was laughter. We have been slaves to the Vorthax for 80 years. Now we can fight back. This is a good trade. But the Vorthax were not sitting still. Emperor Gregstar had replaced his dead advisor with someone even more brutal. War Marshal Drakon, who had built his reputation by destroying entire planets. Great Emperor, Drakon said as he knelt before the throne. The humans are spreading their poison to other species. If we do not act soon, the entire Outer Rim will rebel. What do you suggest? The Emperor asked. Drakon's red eyes gleamed. We use the Forbidden Arsenal, the planet killers that were banned by the old treaties. If we destroy a few human worlds completely, the other species will remember why they fear us. The Emperor considered this. The planet killers were weapons of mass destruction that could turn entire worlds into dead rock. They had been outlawed by Galactic Treaty for over 1,000 years. The other species will condemn us, the Emperor said. Let them condemn us. They will also obey us. The Emperor nodded slowly. Do it. Choose 3 human worlds. Make examples of them. 2 weeks later, the human colony world of Bright Hope received an evacuation order. Intelligence Officer Hyun-woo Bak had learned about the Vorthak plan through their spy network, but there wasn't enough time to save everyone. Transport ships worked around the clock to evacuate the planet's 30 million people. They managed to save 22 million before the Vorthak planet killer arrived. Captain Young-ho Park, commanding the evacuation fleet, watched in horror as the massive Vorthak weapon fired. The beam of energy that hit Bright Hope was so powerful, it cracked the planet's crust. Within hours, the entire world was a ball of molten rock. 8 million people died in the flames, including children who couldn't be evacuated in time. But the Vorthax made a terrible mistake. They broadcast the destruction across the galaxy as a warning to other species. They wanted everyone to see what happened to those who defied the Empire. Instead, they showed the galaxy something that changed everything. Dr. Yoon Ji-moon sat at her desk once again, but this time she wasn't speaking to the Vorthax. She was speaking to every intelligent species in known space. People of the galaxy, she said, her voice carrying to millions of worlds. You have just witnessed a crime against all life. The Vorthak Empire has used weapons banned for 1,000 years to murder 8 million innocent people. She showed footage of the evacuation, of human ships desperately trying to save as many lives as possible. These people were farmers and teachers and artists. They had never raised a weapon against anyone. They died because their leaders refused to bow to tyranny. Then she showed something that made the entire galaxy hold its breath. It was a message from President Mi Young-seo, recorded just after the news of Bright Hope reached Earth. Citizens of humanity, the president said, and her voice was like ice. For 18 months we have fought a limited war. We have tried to minimize casualties. We have offered surrender to our enemies. We have followed the laws of civilized warfare. She looked directly into the camera, and her eyes were the eyes of a predator. That ends now. The Vorthak Empire has chosen to use forbidden weapons against our children. They have broken every treaty, every law, every principle of civilized behavior. The president stood up, and behind her, the flags of all human worlds were displayed. I hereby authorize Operation Reckoning. Every human ship, every human weapon, every human soldier is now mobilized for one purpose: The complete destruction of the Vorthak Empire as a political entity. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of 50,000 years of human history. They wanted to see what humans do when pushed beyond all limits. They are about to find out. The broadcast ended, but its effects were immediate. Across human space, the mining ships that had been disguised weapons platforms powered up their real systems. Hidden military bases revealed themselves. Thousands of volunteer raiders joined the official human fleet. But more importantly, the other species of the galaxy finally understood what they were witnessing. Fleet Admiral Junho Ryu stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's largest warship. Around him in space, over 3,000 human vessels prepared for the largest military operation in their species' history. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving messages from the Keltharian Federation, the Ethereal, Collective, and 47 other species. They're offering military support." Junho nodded grimly. "Tell them we appreciate their offer, but this is something humanity needs to finish alone. However, if they want to help liberate their own worlds from Vorthak control, we won't stop them." On the planet Vorthak Prime, Emperor Grextar watched his empire begin to collapse. Rebellions had broken out on over 100 worlds. Half his fleet was trapped defending his own territory from internal revolts, and now the humans were coming with an armada that his spies said was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Great Emperor," his new advisor whispered, "perhaps we should consider negotiating." The Emperor turned to kill this advisor too, but stopped when he saw the look in the creature's eyes. It wasn't fear of the Emperor anymore. It was fear of what was coming. For the first time in his long life, Emperor Grextar began to understand that he might have made a mistake. A very big mistake. In the depths of space, the human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading for the heart of the Vorthak Empire. Behind them, they left a galaxy that would never see humanity the same way again. The quiet ones were quiet no more. Emperor Grextar sat alone in his throne room, staring at the reports scattered across his desk. 3 years since the war began. 3 years of watching his mighty empire crumble like sand. Outside his palace windows, he could see the lights of Vorthak Prime's capital city, but half of those lights were from fires. His own people were rioting in the streets, demanding an end to the war that had brought nothing but death and shame. The latest report made his hands shake. The human fleet had just destroyed the Korvac Defense Station, the strongest military base in Vorthak space. They had done it in 4 hours with minimal losses. The station that was supposed to protect the approaches to the homeworld was now debris floating in space. "Great Emperor," came a voice from the doorway. It was General Vextar, the last of his military commanders who still lived. "The human fleet will be here in 6 days. Grextar didn't look up from his reports. "How many ships do we have left? To defend the homeworld?" 200, Great Emperor. Maybe less. Many captains have disappeared with their crews." The Emperor finally raised his head. His yellow eyes, once bright with confidence, now looked tired and old. 200 ships against 3,000 humans and their allies. Perhaps it is time to discuss terms," Vextar suggested carefully. Grextar stood up slowly. He walked to his window and looked out at his burning capital. In the distance, he could see crowds of Vorthaks carrying signs with human writing on them. His own people were learning the human language, preparing for occupation. "Terms?" he said quietly. "What terms could we possibly offer? We murdered their children. We used forbidden weapons. We broke every law of civilized warfare." He turned, back to Vextar. "No, old friend. There will be no terms. There will only be judgment." The Emperor walked to his desk and opened a locked drawer. Inside was a ceremonial blade, ancient and sharp. "Tell the remaining fleet to surrender when the humans arrive. Tell them to cooperate fully. Maybe some of our people can survive what's coming." Vextar's eyes widened. "Great Emperor, you cannot mean—" "I mean exactly what I say. This empire dies with me. Better that than letting it drag our people into Extinction. 6 days later, Fleet Admiral Junho Ryu stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the human armada dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Vorthak system. Around his flagship, thousands of human ships spread out in perfect formation. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "Vorthak fleet is powering down weapons. They're transmitting surrender codes." Junho nodded. He had expected this. The Vorthaks were many things, but they weren't stupid. They knew they couldn't win this fight. "Any word from the Emperor?" "No, sir. The palace has gone silent." As the human fleet approached Vorthak Prime, shuttles began launching from the planet's surface. But these weren't military shuttles. They were carrying civilians who were trying to evacuate before the humans arrived. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "we're receiving a message from the planet. It's from the Emperor himself." "Put it on screen." The view screen shimmered and Emperor Grextar appeared. But he looked nothing like the proud, vicious creature who had started this war. His scales were dull, his eyes were empty, and his voice was barely a whisper. "Admiral Ryu of the human fleet," he said. "I am Grextar, last emperor of what was once a great empire. I am responsible for the deaths of your people. I am responsible for the suffering we have caused." He held up the ceremonial blade. "By the time you receive this message, I will be dead by my own hand. I do this not to escape justice, but to ensure that my people understand that this empire and its crimes die with me." The Emperor looked directly into the camera. "To the human people I offer no excuses. We were warned. We were given chances to make peace. We chose war instead, and now we face the consequences." He stood up slowly. "To my own people I say this. The humans are not the monsters we told you they were. Cooperate with them. Learn from them. Maybe they will teach you to be better than we were." The transmission ended. 2 hours later, scouts reported that Emperor Grextar had been found dead in his throne room, the ceremonial blade through his heart. Beside his body was a scroll containing the formal surrender of all Vorthak forces and the dissolution of the Vorthak Empire. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. President Ji Un-kang, who had replaced Mi Young-seo 6 months earlier, arrived at Vorthak Prime 3 weeks after the surrender. She came not with an occupation force, but with doctors, teachers, and engineers. "The Vorthak Empire is dead," she announced to a gathering of Vorthak leaders in the former throne room. "But the Vorthak people don't have to die with it." The Vorthaks listened nervously as she outlined humanity's plan for the post-war galaxy. There would be no slavery, no tribute, no conquered territories. Instead, former Vorthak worlds would be given the chance to form their own governments. "You will have human advisors to help you transition to democracy," President Kang explained. "But the choice of how to govern yourselves will be yours alone." Former General Vexitar, now speaking for the Vorthak people, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Why? Why show us mercy after what we did to your people?" President Kang was quiet for a moment, then spoke in a voice that carried the wisdom of a species that had learned from its own mistakes. "Because we remember what we used to be. Humans fought terrible wars for thousands of years. We killed each other for land, for resources, for ideas. We nearly destroyed our own world." She gestured to the human advisors around the room. "We learned that the only way to have lasting peace is to help former enemies become friends. Conquered peoples always rebel eventually, but people who are treated with respect and given the chance to build something better, they become allies." Over the following months, the galaxy watched in amazement as humanity kept its word. Vorthak worlds were not occupied, but liberated. Species that had been enslaved for generations were given the technology and support they needed to build their own governments. Admiral Sang Min established the Human Protection Initiative, a peacekeeping force that would respond to aggression anywhere in the galaxy. But it operated under strict rules. It would only act when requested by legitimate governments, it would never impose human values on other species, and it would always offer potential aggressors a chance to surrender before fighting began. "We are not here to rule the galaxy," Admiral O explained to the new Galactic Council. "We are here to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." The Keltharians, freed from Vorthak tribute, became humanity's closest allies. The ethereal collective used their new freedom to become the galaxy's premier shipbuilders. Even former Vorthak worlds began to prosper under their new democratic governments. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity itself. Dr. Yoon-ji Moon, now the head of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, often spoke to young people from dozens of species. Her message was always the same. Humans are not naturally peaceful. We are naturally dangerous. But we choose to be peaceful because we know the cost of war. She would show them recordings from the war, images of human ships striking with devastating precision, of entire Vorthak fleets surrendering rather than face human tactics. This is what we are capable of when we are angry. This is why we work so hard to solve problems with words instead of weapons. 10 years after the war ended, Captain Dae-ho Kim returned to New Seoul. The colony had been rebuilt, bigger and more beautiful than before. The memorial park where the original cities had stood was now a place of peace, where children played among gardens dedicated to the 8 million who had died. Dae-ho was an old man now, his hair white and his steps slow. But his eyes were still, sharp as he read the inscription on the central memorial. Here lies the price of demanding war from those who offered peace. Let all species remember, we are slow to anger, swift to forgive, and terrible in our wrath. Choose wisely which face of humanity you wish to see. A young Vorthak child, part of a cultural exchange program, tugged on his sleeve. Grandfather Kim, she said in careful human language, were you really in the war? Dae-ho smiled and knelt down to her level. Yes, little one. I was there when it started. Were you scared? She asked. Very scared, he admitted. But sometimes being scared helps you make the right choices. What choice did you make? Dae-ho looked around at the peaceful park, at the human and Vorthak children playing together, at the memorial that reminded everyone of the cost of hatred. We, Kao, chose to remember that our enemies are also someone's children, he said gently. And we chose to make sure that their children would never have to be our enemies. As the sun set over New Seoul, Dae-ho could see lights in the sky. The lights of ships from dozens of worlds, all living in peace under the protection of the species that had learned to turn its greatest weakness into its greatest strength. Humanity had wanted to be left alone to explore the stars in peace. When that choice was taken from them, they had shown the galaxy what they truly were. Not sheep, but sleeping wolves who preferred to dream of better things. Now the galaxy was full of those better things, and the wolves could sleep peacefully once more, but they never forgot how to wake up.